back, everyone. Episode 62. Everybody's in the house, which is nice.
Yep.
Summer's flying by.
Mhm.
June. We'll do a little Minnesota thing. If you don't really know what to talk about, you talk about the weather when you meet somebody. So I got a little complaint. June's been so wet. It's just been rain. So usually in Minnesota we have 3 awesome months and some good months and some winter months. Right.
Well, like the last 2 summers, we haven't had any rain. It's been like
we needed it.
We've had more rain in June alone than I feel like the last 2 years combined.
And we did need it, but it's just like depressing if you want to go outside, whether it's golf or yard work or cabin or boating or whatever it is. So it's finally starting to see some sun, which is a good thing. So
that was like this last Saturday. The whole day, like my weather app said it's supposed to be sunny the entire day, and then all of a sudden, like noon rolls around and it gets cloudy, and then we end up with severe thunderstorms under tornado watch. I'm like, how do we go from expecting clear skies to tornado watch?
It's a good job to have, right? Where you're constantly wrong and you still have a job, I guess.
Can we be like that?
Yeah, that would help, right? Lisa, how about you? The weather is good, bad, indifferent, or are you just?
I'm not so sure about that. So far there was a lot of wet, a lot of rain and storms. Then it's so hot and humid. Like sometimes within the same day, like you said, it's weird. Then on Saturday we had a tornado warning, and then all of a sudden after midnight, and I was already sleeping, kind of it rained, and everyone kind of should have taken themselves to the basement.
Didn't happen.
No, that didn't happen. I was like, well, if nothing breaks down, I go back to bed. But it's like it goes from that to extreme, like all the extremes, like in quite short amount of time.
Kyle, any damage at any of your palaces? No, all good.
Thankfully, we've got trees. We've got a real big leaner in our backyard that we got a quote to remove because it's very big. And it's like at a 45-degree angle, and thankfully it didn't go down. I wanted it to go down, but I'm like,
would it hit the house if
it's real close?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
that'd have been a problem.
Yeah,
not good. All right, jumping into Lisa's themes about 2 truths and a lie. We'll talk about those numbers. I'm out with the numbers, and we're doing some other stuff. We'll do 2 truths and a lie about Apple stock. All right. First one: Apple's the 3rd largest stock in the S&P 500. B, Apple stock has outperformed the market over the last 3 years. C, Apple's in a bear market. Come on, investment gurus. Who wants to start? Let's start with Tyler on the end there.
I know Apple's the 3rd largest. That one's easy. You got NVIDIA, Microsoft above it.
Wow. All right.
The Apple is in a bear market. I'm pretty sure it hasn't kept up with the S&P, so I know it's underperformed by like quite a bit, but I don't think it's in a bear. I don't think the stock price's decline has been big enough to be in a bear market. I'd be shocked if that. I'm also a little shocked by B, but I'm gonna go with B anyways.
Okay.
B is wrong. You go with
which
B
one
wrong.
did you go
it's two truths and a lie.
Yeah. It can't be all truths for Pete's sakes.
That's not the first time we were playing that time.
Oh, Apple is not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Apple is not outperformed.
So C.
Apple. Okay, sorry, I'm going with C. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Kyle, for interpreting.
Don't worry. It's Wednesday.
Kyle, why don't you go then?
I'm also going to say C. I believe that's the case. Now, if this would have been Google, I would have said they are in a bear market.
Okay. Lisa?
So, A is correct. I'm still struggling with B though, because when we think of outperforming the S&P over the last 3 years, and it's like 24, 23, I'm good with that, but I'm not so sure about 22.
It's true. That's why we put these questions out there.
We're already taking out most of the 2022 decline at this point. Depending on, it depends on keys 3 or time frame.
Is it over the
as of the other day?
Is it over the last 3 years, or is it like in every single year?
No.
Rolling.
Just a 3-year.
It's rolling?
Just a 3-year period.
Okay.
I like the extra math. Everybody's
exactly. Everybody's trying to justify their answers already.
Yeah. I still go with B.
Wow, Lisa's correct.
Oh,
Really?
what? Really?
Apple's actually underperformed, which that's what surprised me.
Yes.
It's not by much, but it has. And then Apple is in a bear market from the peak.
They
It
are?
is?
Yeah, it's down like 20.5% from
Oh,
end of
20.5.
Hey, is that a bear market or not, guys? Well, now we
It's
see what
true,
kind
but
now kind of see what kind of investment team we have here.
Oh.
One of the largest companies in the market, they don't know what's going on with it. It would surprise me that
shows
the
how much we pay attention to Apple.
underperformance for 3 years kind of.
I don't own it in the value.
Yeah,
stuff,
okay.
you know.
We'll give Kyle a pass. I don't know about Tyler. We'll see.
Hey, I'm a value only guy as well. You're the only growth core guy.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of that, let's talk about the actual market in the first half. We'll do a little check-in here. So the first half of the year, you look on the surface, we're up 6.2%. You guys think that's a pretty normal?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a swing.
If
What
you,
a ride.
If you came out of a coma and looked at 6.2, you'd be like,
Mhm.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's
All good.
Yeah. All good. Like, why is everyone like freaking out?
Mhm.
Kyle. Got any thoughts to add on the kind of what's happened the first half of the year, other than the everybody's like ho hum on 6.2%?
It's really funny. It's kind of like the surface of a lake, right? Like it's just nice and calm, everything's going fine, but underneath there's a lot of activity going on. I mean, from the tariffs and earnings season and the labor markets, becoming more squishy, and inflation, and the rate cuts potentially on the table. Like there's just a lot. Geopolitical risk. There's a lot. If you would have framed that up and we would have made a prediction on January 1, what it would have looked like this year, if you would have,
especially knowing all those variables,
all those variables, you would have never. I don't think anybody would have been like, oh yeah, we're going to be just whistling by the graveyard +6 come the halfway marker. It's very surprising.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what this next month and the rest of the year brings. I mean, you look at the seasonality of each of the months, and July does pretty well, and we're at the kickoff of earnings season. What, next 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
I mean, no 1 year is alike, but for you, like, has there been a year that has been like this that you've seen or experienced?
Yeah, there's been a couple. I can't name off the top of my head. Not only this, there's the other year. I think it was 2000. Must have been about 2017 or 18, when the market was just so smooth. It didn't.
17. That was 17.
It just every day would just kind of gradually go up. Every month, which surprised me. There was stuff going on as well, but not as much as this. So it does, and that's why I thought it's a good topic today to talk about. We always preach, stay invested, long-term investment planning. Don't get, when the markets go down, it's probably a buying opportunity. When markets get really extended, it's probably a trim opportunity. So that's with all the stuff that we know that's happened, for the market to be up 6.2%. It's an impressive thing. So I think you described it well. On the surface, it looks great. Like if you were to close your eyes, plug your ears, and say, oh, 6.2, great. You remember our theme coming into this year, Lisa? What was it?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I think we nailed that one with the theme without knowing what exactly is upon us. But and we themed the year of Bring an Umbrella, and I think we needed that umbrella a couple of times this year.
Probably needed
Sometimes
a bigger umbrella.
It flew off.
Probably needed in the
Yeah,
second part of the year too.
Absolutely. So I think we nailed that one. Yeah, it was pouring, it was raining at sometimes. We had also sunny times. Just thinking
tornado
of
watch it sometimes.
Tornado watch it sometimes.
Lisa was sleeping through that one.
I was sleeping through that one, but I think we've had it all. And it was surprising that we saw like the brisk of a bear market falling.
Yeah, we were close, right?
We were close,
like
or intraday
or
even
something.
in it.
Yeah.
And then that sharp recovery, which was one of the sharpest recoveries in history, which was amazing, because when we think of the reasons why the market kind of panicked and sold off in the first place, and then about the recovery where none of that really was completely resolved.
No, it's
that
still
was
issues.
That was interesting. And then we just hit 2 new all-time highs for the S&P end of last week and this week since February. Another one for the Nasdaq as well since December. So that is all amazing. But again, like when you look at it like this, it seems like, oh, totally fine. But I think investors had to endure a lot in the first 6 months.
And that's why we got to preach the fact, stay invested, kind of tune out the noise. I mean, there was, to Tyler's point, I don't remember a year being this kind of noisy or chaotic. I mean, there's been, obviously the COVID shutdown was that's another category, right? But for news flow of potential big things that could drag the market down.
And so much at once, like you barely couldn't turn your head to what headline or what is even more important or what will drive the market even more. Sometimes overlapping, and I mean, you could see it that investors were struggling to see a direction.
You brought up 2017, but this also, I mean, it's a little bit different because I feel like it's a little bit like April was a lot sharper than what we are used to, but it reminds me kind of like 2018 when the first trade war started with China. Because I mean, that fourth quarter of 2018 just absolutely brutal, tanked. And I think we ended up hitting like down 18.5%, something like that.
Yep.
And this one, we were down 19.5%. Now we're rebounding. Trade wars worries are seemingly gone, even though they're still lingering. It feels a lot like 2018 if you think about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I would say there's more other stuff on top of just the tariff stuff. But absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. The market reaction certainly feels like you could overlay it to 2018.
If you just take that last quarter of 18, overlap it with this second quarter of 2025, I feel like it probably looks somewhat similar. Maybe a little bit more rapid, but
the tariff stuff was very worrisome for investors at first announcement in 2018 with Trump. But then on top of that, I think the government was potentially shutting down in 2018. So there's
fourth quarter, right?
Well,
fourth quarter.
I mean, you also had 2018 was also when Trump started his first bout at Powell and trying to get him out. And now we're doing the same exact thing right now.
Kept him in, so it's always
So I don't know. There's just, I mean, yes, there's a lot of other things going on right now for 2025 specifically. There's a lot of things going on for 2018 specifically, but combining everything, like the major pain points with Trump, trade war, Powell, like it's just 2.0.
And that may be part of the reason that the market has kind of recovered so quickly off this tariff fears, right? Because when tariffs first came out, these are some pretty aggressive. I mean, we're talking about the effective tariff rate being going from 2.5% to 25-ish overnight. And again, if you believe he was art of the deal, which I think some people do, some people don't, that number was coming down. And now we're seeing it with some of the deals. And again, July 9th is coming up. That's going to be another big deadline.
Well, Eurozone is apparently close to the deal and accepting that 10%
they are okay
tariff rate and potentially trying to do quotas and whatnot on autos to lower that 25%. So I mean, it sounds more like we're trying to get deals done.
Yep.
Our neighbors to the north aren't very happy with us on that one, but I'm sure something will get done there too.
At least Tyler and I got in
we got in and out.
So we're fine now. So yeah, no, it's an interesting now. So that's first half of the year. Let's get on a record here and kind of make some bold predictions on maybe what. Lisa, you want to start this? Kind of what you think is going to happen for the second half of the year, or something we should watch out for at least?
I believe we're not out of the storm yet. So I think we will need, to your point first, I think we will need the umbrella still a little bit and should not store it away quite yet. I think that the change, the game changes a little bit from uncertainty and panic, and we do not know what exactly happens, more to, okay, we get something done so that the peak uncertainty is gone and the panic, but now we have to focus on, okay, how are we dealing with that consequences? And I think the shift will be more to inflation, back to the Fed, GDP growth, so more economically depending, like how our companies dealing with that, because we haven't seen a whole lot of impacts yet, and economists were predicting much more heavier impacts as of now, which hasn't materialized for multiple reasons. But I think there will be more focus on that, how that will actually turn out, if it will be that severe or not, or if it will just go by. I think that's important for the economy, recession probabilities and all of that. So I think the name of the game changes a little bit, but it will still be, I think, with some surprises and bumpy, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a smooth ride.
No, I don't think.
Kyle, any?
I think there's going to be a lot of noise that will continue. and that's probably a new regime that we will maintain for the next few years. And I think it'll probably maintain post, Trump as well. I think we've been in this regime of noise for the better part of a decade now, but it's just continuing the drumbeat of getting more and more and more. So it's almost like, as investors, focusing back in on what matters the most, and that's really earnings. So what drives those things? So, you're going to have tariff talks, you're going to have fiscal and monetary policy issues. Those things have been around for a century or more, right? So, I think ultimately it will be a grind higher, irrespective of the noise.
Yeah, Tyler.
You
got a hot take on this?
No, I mean, my call at the beginning of the year was consumer weakness coming in the back half of the year. We're going to start to hear about it with the banks. I think my call was Q2 earnings season. We'll hear the banks talk about weakening consumer demand. And I think we actually do get that. I mean, we're starting to see data show up from the economic side of, like, today we got ADP. Private sector jobs were negative. What was it 50K?
50, yeah.
Versus up 110K, right? So, like, you're starting to see that, and ultimately that it's just going to ruin consumer spending. And maybe we're already seeing that on the lower end, and maybe those jobs that we're losing are on the lower end anyways. So maybe that cohort.
Didn't you see Microsoft?
Yeah, 9,000 jobs today, and year to date, 15,000 jobs at Microsoft got.
I think that 9,000 was the second round that they did.
Right,
but
it's across all pay bands.
Oh, okay.
So
it's like
so now you're starting to affect, because the spending has been coming from the higher end cohorts.
Right,
10% of the top 10% of earners have been making up about 50% of all spending, and now if you start hitting those 10%, right? If we can't hold that and continue that. If those jobs go away. So I still think consumer weakens in the back half of the year. I think there's a lot more concern on that. Maybe it doesn't affect the stock market this year. That data might not show up in earnings. And so maybe that's a 2026 issue, but I do think consumers start to weaken. I think investors become more cautious on those type of names under the expectation that those earnings and revenues are going to start to decline at some point in the upcoming quarters. So I think the markets can still grind higher because the market is still driven by AI. Like, regardless of consumer weakening, companies are just going to keep spending, and the big guys just keep getting bigger. And we've seen it the last 3 years. Those are the names that have been driving the stock market anyways. So I think you still can get a grind higher regardless of those consumer companies weakening. But that'd be my call for the rest of this year. And I still think three to four rate cuts.
This year?
3 to 4?
No way. Really?
That's a bold
wow.
call. Okay.
That's I figured Tyler's gonna have another whole segment on this next week. So I think that's
we go deep into the weeds. Probably.
When I'm gone, you guys can go.
All right.
Into the.
I'm sticking with my initial calls for the year.
You just got to make sure you threw that out there.
I had to throw that out there. Yeah.
That was surprising for me as well. Like, how the big boys, the big tech boys, are still kind of the heroes. Because in the beginning of the year, they were lagging, and we kind of saw some cracks there and some uncertainty if they can keep up the spend and AI and all of that. And now they still basically come to the rescue again.
Well, was that just a convenient foil, like an optical illusion? Because if you think about to me, my perception is, if you look at the top ETF holdings, doesn't matter if it's SPY, VOO, or any of them, like, even just random non S&P 500.
It's basically the same name.
It's the same top 10 names, right? So
yeah.
if you're getting a mass sell-off in March because of tariff tantrum in April, and then those ones are just, the money is going to drain out, and then when the tide comes back in, it's going to lift all the boats back up. Those are the ones that are the biggest percentage in those. So that's definitely a part of it, maybe not all of it, but I definitely think that has something to do with how the mechanics of the market are moving those names.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
I also think you have to, when it comes to investors and getting questions on, well, if you think economy is weakening, how can the market still do well? I think there's an important point that we always have to bifurcate, like, who actually is leading the charge of the market, which is the AI companies, even if the overall economy weakens, because we're seeing significantly horrible economic reports. Like the soft data that we're getting is like some of the worst that we've seen in a long, long time, right? But yet the market continues to grind higher. So you have to separate the two and understand how the market dynamics actually work and what's driving it versus, we can come on here and say, yes, economic data is weakening. And people say, well, how can the market keep going up?
Well,
right?
it's like,
well, that's why, is because earnings are being driven by the big companies who are the ones that are the big investors in AI. They're raking in all the cash.
Yep.
They're leading the charge. They're the largest weight in the market and isn't necessarily affected by what's going on in the economy.
Right. Yeah. Riding on that, I saw a chart this morning. I'll have to go back and look at the history of it, but it said Russell 2000, so small cap names, almost 50% are unprofitable.
That's crazy.
So like you look at that and it's like, oh,
that's probably more than historical, right?
I don't know. That's why I say I need to go back and look.
I think I saw a chart the other couple of weeks ago about that.
Right.
That it's historically seen it's high.
Right. But that ticks and ties with your comments, Tyler, on who is leading the way. And you can have a lot of these. Yeah, I mean, you had 0 interest rate policy for forever. So it's like all these zombie companies can just kind of keep walking around.
Didn't you have the chart of small caps and percentage of their debt that's floating?
Yeah.
Right?
It's a tremendous amount. I forget what percentage it is, but it's a lot.
But now all of a sudden you go from 0 to your point, 0 to
right.
I mean, I'm sure they're doing SOFR plus something.
Yeah.
And you're talking SOFR at 4.5.
Right.
Now you're talking 6.5 to, if you're a terrible company, probably 10, 11%.
Yeah. I mean,
hard to keep the doors open.
Right. Well, and if you've got, debt refinancing, I mean, the schedules like come due. It's no different than what we've been talking about the last couple months here with the U.S. interest rate policy, right? Like trying to bring it down so you can roll the debt. But small cap companies, same kind of thing, right? Got to pay the piper sometime.
I have another question for you to come back a little bit to your consumer spending and unemployment rate and
not
Microsoft.
The Fed. You can say that from I'm gone.
No, not the Fed. But I have another question because we just mentioned shortly Microsoft is laying off kind of 15,000 people a year. Do you think that we are underestimating the impact of AI and how AI is replacing employees, that we are underestimating that a little bit? Because we do not hear a lot about that, but it's happening in the background a lot, especially in the tech sector.
Yeah.
We always hear about like layoffs, efficiency and all of that, but I think we are not talking enough what that actually means or what that efficiency actually means, that we do not need those employees anymore, and what it means for the future and how it kind of spreads across other companies as well. And I just was interested, like, your opinion on it, because I do not hear a lot about that specifically. And I think it's very important too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what's starting to happen. You've seen, I think we talked about a few episodes ago about the college, IT, software engineering. They're down on the list because this AI stuff is certainly replacing some of the, the new generation there. And you're right. That's why these big companies, to your surprise predictions of, I think you're right, this AI stuff really picked back up again in the second quarter, and that's kind of what propelled the market because of their size and stuff like that. So it's real, and they're still investing, and I think they're investing ahead of the fact that they can make their companies more efficient with less people, and that's...
And we do not also hear about the companies itself a whole lot on that. I just, Dominic is working in like the tech.
Dominic is her husband.
Yeah, my husband. And he's kind of a little bit up to date on the kind of software engineering and all of that. And there was like an adage, hey, if you can code, you always will have a job. But that basically changes now because that's not enough anymore. And he's like, wow, it looks like pretty dark in that sector, in that area. And it's like really changing fast beyond the surface. But still, we do not hear a lot about that, I believe.
Yeah, you don't hear about it. You certainly, the people going through school, or at least because, if you go back a decade, that's all you heard, software. You want to be a software engineer, software engineer. And it's like, that's certainly from the studies we talked about and looked at, that's not
And that's just the first step where it starts, basically. And
it's not just becoming a software engineer, it's being at a top tier Ivy League school, that kind of thing. Not like University of Minnesota. As much as I love the U of M, being a software engineer out of the U of M is probably not going to land you that top job or security at that top job at some of these companies, right? Like, it's just the nature of the business at this point.
No, AI is incredible. And as you use more and more of it. If you just do it for editing papers and things like that, it's like, now if you were an editor or something like that, I'd be a little bit worried about my job, right? When you can do something in minutes versus
so
passing
do you think that
somebody
will keep kind of still trickle in, or do you think we will see like an acceleration of that where we really are in front of a problem that we see so many layoffs that
I think there's going to be a rotation. It's there's an academic paper. I'll have to go back and I just read the abstract, so I didn't actually dig through the like 80 pages, but maybe I should go back because I feel like this topic keeps coming back up, and the abstract was interesting enough. I'll see if I can dig it out and send it around. It was basically an observation of how AI was originally perceived to come in and take kind of regular jobs, the writers, the people in media,
call centers,
call centers, that kind of thing, which intuitively that's what you would imagine would happen first because it's low-hanging fruit, right? And the early adopter window of AI and the technology, because it's like the new shiny thing, like the people who are coding it are the ones that are implementing it first, which is inverted compared to what you might expect. And so the people who are actually losing the jobs first
are
the ones you thought wouldn't.
Introducing it.
Right. Yeah. And so it's actually happening in reverse. And so the high profile coder jobs that from the outside seem high profile are kind of that lower echelon, the people, the University of Minnesota coders that come in that are doing the rudimentary work. But the ones that are not being replaced are the, Johns Hopkins coders or the, the MIT.
Sorry for any U of M.
Sorry. Yeah. So sorry. You're right.
It's just trashing the hometown college.
Hey, I went to the U as well. That being said, to your point, does that actually, now that the first dominoes are starting to fall, does that actually gain momentum into other, it's almost like sector rotation in the market, right? Like you're starting in IT, and then when does that bleed into, industrials and healthcare and other places?
And is that maybe also a risk that we are not seeing as such that much that can, trickle through the economy and all of that, and we are underestimating it maybe.
It's not all doom and gloom though, because I mean it's easy to say that. I mean it's layoffs are not, that's a terrible thing. But from a stock market perspective, and that's what we're talking about here in this podcast, you think about business efficiency, you're squeezing more earnings out of that.
For sure.
So going back to what you said, earlier about labor and, consumer weakness, consumer is the engine, the growth driver of the economy. So it's almost kind of like, what's the fulcrum, like the lever point between, companies are becoming more efficient. So their earnings are going to go up, price action, the market's going to drive higher. And also, there's an offset where consumers are now unemployed. They're trying to reorient. And so does it just, like what happens? Hard to.
I mean, if I think about it, like even if you're unemployed, you're still going to go on Instagram. You're still going to go on YouTube. Like that ad revenue, maybe companies do pull back a bit,
not much.
But if you still have people going to those platforms, probably even more consistently than they are now, because now they don't have a job. Right, they got a lot of time on their hands.
But if you're not buying anything, then probably the ads kind of start coming down.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The ad spend probably does start to come down, but if that's where the eyeballs are, that's where companies are going to focus their budgets on. So like those companies still continue to earn money.
So is your hot take the ads are now going to be a revival of Monster and Indeed?
There you go.
Probably.
In some aspect, yeah.
But I don't really know where I was going with that, but I think a good example of this is like my favorite company in the world, Broadcom, right? Their A6 division was up.
We all know.
But their but their A6 division was up 60% last quarter, year over year, right? That spend is clearly coming in still. And that's the company that is driving our market right now. Same thing with Microsoft, same thing with Nvidia. Right? Like those are the biggest companies. So that's where you get that earnings growth that we're seeing, despite that consumer weakness that can draw down on the McDonald's, it can draw down on any other consumer focus oriented type of stock.
Yeah. Well, one last point before we'll jump into some fun stuff is expectations going into this part of the year was that spend, that growth rate of those large names was going to slow, and the rest of the stuff would pick up. That hasn't happened. To your point, it's actually re-accelerated the other way. So, which I find interesting. That's part of the reason the stock market's up.
Yeah.
So,
well, sorry, before we transition, one last point I'll lob in, maybe just planting the seed for a future conversation. If that does happen, where we start seeing, AI kind of working and knocking the dominoes over, and consumer weakness and unemployment and all that stuff, does that actually create a vicious cycle, an unanticipated vicious cycle of deflation? So I think Japan.
Yeah, no, it could. And that's where some of the people that argue that, all this inflation with tariff stuff, well, there could be some other offsets, and that's in oil going down as the other.
Right.
Well, at some point too, there has to be a reckoning where AI just can't keep growing at the same rate, right? The law of large numbers, right? You just can't keep growing at 60%. Eventually that pace of growth slows. And so at some point, the economy and the consumers do come back into the fold and do begin to matter again. But right now, it just doesn't matter.
So, all right. Since we started with weather, we'll kind of transition back to weather and 4th of July weekend coming up here. So anybody have any big plans, any kind of traditions? Kyle?
Yeah, we do on our lake, we do a boat parade. So it should be really good.
Yeah.
So everyone dresses up in a little costume. So we got my wife got we're doing Minions this year. So the two the two boys are going to be Minions.
We want to see a photo.
And then I will definitely send a photo. And then my wife has got a big head for Gru with the
you
the
guys
big
go
nose
all
and
out.
Wow. And then I'm going to be Vector, which is the guy in the orange tracksuit from the first movie.
Yeah.
It's good.
Do you guys at least throw like little flags on the boat, or is it just all theme based?
No, it's all everybody does their own.
Okay.
All the different boats do different themes. So last year, some people were in like inflatable Jurassic,
all
those things.
T-Rexes.
Yeah, T-Rexes. They're doing like flips around, and some people do the American flags, and some people do it's just very varied. So,
nice.
So that'll be good. And then we do a fishing competition with the kids on Saturday. So
wow.
Hopefully the weather will stick it out.
Sounds like you got a hopping thing going on your lake. Lisa?
Yeah, I do not have a lot of traditions. It's my 3rd 4th of July. And I mean, it's a great holiday itself because it's in July most of the time. The weather is good, right? Cabin or boats or fireworks or all of that. That's pretty cool. We usually just watch fireworks somewhere. And but overall, like the traditions that you have, how you celebrate it, is just cool with barbecues and spending time with family and just a nice summer day off. But we have to find our tradition, so we're still in the find out
searching.
process.
Have you ever done fireworks where you've lit them and
back in Austria? Yes, but the interesting thing is, as a side note here, we are firing fireworks on New Year's Eve. And because we do have a 4th of July equivalent. It's not 4th of July, it's in October, but we don't do a whole lot there, to be honest. So it's nothing like the Independence Day in the US.
Okay.
Everyone keeps their fingers, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, not on New Year's Eve. And then when we had our first
drinks
New Year's
were involved
Eve
as well,
here,
right?
Yeah, and when we had our first New Year's Eve here, we waited for fireworks and we kind of researched where are fireworks, and we couldn't find anything. I was like, are they not doing that? Like, what is
freezing out?
What is happening?
We do fireworks.
And then we figured out, okay, they are doing it on 4th of July, not on New Year's Eve. So
there are some
we're doing
places that do fireworks for
New
Year's Eve.
Yeah. Anyways, but there's like a big jigsaw puzzle coming up for the hand surgery, I guess.
No.
I mean, in the ER. That's usually the busiest.
That's all right.
Busiest
Tyler?
time for them.
Don't have a whole lot. I mean, our dog is deathly scared of thunder and fireworks. When he was like maybe 6 months old, 6 or 7 months old, was 4th of July. And we were on a walk, and one of the big bursty fireworks, I don't know where it came from, but it must have been a dud and just landed on the sidewalk in front of us and exploded probably 10 feet away.
No way.
And so ever since then, he's out. He's out. So we try not to do a whole lot on the 4th because he'll rip up the house.
We got 2 young boys. You
and then,
at least,
I mean, they'll go to bed before fireworks can even
fireworks,
start, right? So I mean, they go to bed at like 7 and 8. So
yeah,
not even dark out.
Is there a specific time you do fireworks? Because New Year's Eve it's easier. You do it around
Usually,
midnight. But
still
when
it gets
do you do
dark,
it?
so
Yeah.
it's
Once-
at 9:30,
yeah.
10. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on where you are. Some are a lot bigger. If you're like the Lake Minnetonka area, they have fantastic ones. If you're in smaller towns, they have good ones, but not as long. So
What are you doing?
same as Kyle. We live on a lake, so it's the same type of thing. So if you're not, the boat parades always kind of crack me up, but yours sound really fun. Ours are just everybody decorates their pontoons and boats with flags and the American theme, but no one's. The only unique one that we have is we have a pastor that has got a cabin on a lake that he's very good on singing, and he brings his whole family out there, and they got the accordion going on.
Oh, really?
and
Oh,
singing.
fun.
Yeah, it's like
That's
God
great.
bless America. It's kind of cool. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a throwback 50 years ago. So
Yeah.
That's
it's
nice.
fun. Yeah. No, I to Lisa's point, I think it's one of our favorite holidays and one of everybody's favorite holidays because it's mid-year break, weather's good, time to enjoy the
Families
family
together, barbecue boats.
Yeah.
What else do you need in the Midwest?
That's it. So on that note, everybody, thanks for listening.